What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? So, it's been a while, and I have been doing my darndest to update everybody on what's been going on with your girl and why it's been a while since I've last posted, but here we are. Today, what I'd like to talk about, if the title wasn't obvious enough, is let's bring this a little closer to us. Today, what I'd like to talk about is, one more adjustment. Is the potential diagnoses, potential because I am not a psychiatric healthcare practitioner. I am not a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I am not a psychiatrist. I am not a psychologist. Okay. I say potential. I'm in the psychiatric nurse practitioner program. I have been taught about a number of different mental health disorders and what it can lead to with these disorders not being treated. So I am making healthy, educated guesses based on my experience in healthcare as a nurse, and both based on the brand new intellect that I was blessed with by being in this psychiatric nurse practitioner program. Okay, so let's just make it clear. I am not diagnosing anyone. We are having a conversation. All of that being said, I do believe that based on what I've learned, and again, my experience, that P. Diddy, Sean P. Diddy Combs, can very easily be diagnosed with three main mental health disorders. Number one, first and foremost, the one that sits at the very top of my list with big red flashing lights, is narcissistic personality disorder. We'll get into it. Second, antisocial personality disorder. And third, hypersexual disorder. There's a bunch more, but we're going to talk about those three main things. And I say a bunch more, not in a facetious manner, but if you pair the behavior with his charges, they end up being textbook for other mental health disorders that I am not going to have the time to get into today. We can continue this. Y'all just let me know in the comments how you're feeling. Narcissistic personality disorder is characterized by the lack of ability to have remorse, to see the other person's perspective, and the preoccupation, the obsession with power and manipulation. What does all of that mean for P. Diddy? How does it correlate to everything that's going on? Well, a number of his charges are associated with abuse, sexual assault, and rape. And I understand that that is a touchy topic for a number of people. So if this is difficult for some of you, I do want to offer my apologies and my condolences. And that this video is not intended to cause harm. It is just intended to be a discussion. So all of that being said, with those charges and with my educated guess of Mr. P. Diddy being diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, I'd like to dive deeper. What does it mean to be manipulative? What does it mean to be obsessed with power? You're not going to see anybody else's perspective if you have a desire to be manipulative. You're going to only see your benefit. That is why when manipulation, the term manipulative or manipulation, comes into the conversation, it is not lightheartedly. It is not with a jovial spirit. It is with concern. It is often with a heavy heart, with anger. And when we think about the number of children involved, that can very easily be paired with the obsession with power. In a lot of situations where children are often taken advantage of or harmed or hurt, it is by people who have that sad preoccupation with power, with wanting to be in control. And unfortunately, children are easy to control. And that is what makes this entire thing so disgusting and so sad. That is what makes it so easy to diagnose him with narcissistic personality disorder, because narcissists often, and not often, but it is characterized by the inability to see anybody else's perspective. There is an absence of morale. If there was a solid presence of morale, then the urge or the desire to do such drastic and major amounts of harm to people who cannot necessarily fight back or speak up for themselves the way you and I can, none of that would have been taken. It wouldn't have happened. It would not have been in discussion. And I know that there are a lot of people that use the term narcissist often when they're talking about their ex-partners or their current partners or ways to get away from their partners. We know what narcissists are. We know what it means to be narcissistic, and it's disgusting. It's incredibly unpleasant to be around narcissistic people. It's hard, especially when you are capable of seeing another person's perspective. When you're in a relationship, of course you want the other person to see your perspective. It very quickly and easily becomes exhausting being the only person seeing the other person's perspective. Never being considered, always being gaslighted, always being manipulated into doing something that has absolutely no benefit to you, all the benefits to the partner. And then there's that manipulative effect where they're making it seem like you owe them. It's horrible. It is horrible. Just in case I didn't make that clear the first time I said it. So when you pair those characteristic traits with his charges, it coincides very easily. The puzzle pieces match it. They match together perfectly. That's one. The second, the antisocial personality disorder. That shares a lot of symptoms with narcissistic personality disorder, but it also pairs with the disregard for social norms, the insistent or constant violation of boundaries, social norms. And I don't want to keep repeating the word social norms, but what is appropriate, what is acceptable, So it's not going to take a rocket science to put two and two together here. Okay, it's public. The things that P. Diddy is being charged with. A number of social norms have gone completely out the window. The other person's perspective, the other person's desires, the other person's will, the other person's presence, the other person's what's another way to say this? Right to be seen as human. All of that goes out the window with antisocial personality disorder. And of course, it's in the name, antisocial, the disregard of social norms. I don't like to keep diving back into P. Diddy's charges because they are quite heinous and disgusting. And I know that goes without saying. So for the sake of, there's an understanding. We're well aware of it. It's nothing new. I'm not the first person you're going to hear this from. His charges paired with the disregard of social norms, those also coincide. As I was looking through these diagnoses and as I was putting it all together, it's not going to take much to conclude that he's not a good person. He's not a kind person. He's not a thoughtful person. And if there were anything or any moments that indicated that there's a thoughtful, kind, considerate person in there, it was a part of the narcissistic personality disorder, because narcissists also are very good at manipulation. They're very good at reading the room. They're very good at picking up on other people's faults, on other people's triggers, on other people's personalities, because they're doing it so that they know what to use to their advantage. They're doing it so that they know how to approach with a manipulative MO, with a manipulative plan. You can't get what you want from someone by coming into it and saying exactly what it is you want if it is a malicious intent. You don't just introduce yourself and say, look, my intention is to completely obliterate your sense of self, to strip you of yourself and to use all of that to make myself feel powerful and strong. That's not how an introduction starts. You're supposed to start charming. It's supposed to start kind and thoughtful. Because now I've been able to convince you that I am completely incapable of doing any of the things that I am going to do. If you think back to that video with his ex-partner, I don't want to say names. I don't want to get too deep into that because I know that that's also a touchy topic for a number of people. But the video was posted where he chased her down and he did cause her harm, and it was devastating and very difficult to watch. All of that being said, I'm sure she didn't get into that relationship thinking this man is horrible. It is rare for anyone to get into a relationship with a horrible person initially knowing that they are a horrible person. And finally, the hypersexual disorder. I have had experience working with people with this disorder. And I remembered my very first day. I walked in with my preceptor, and one of the patients that was diagnosed with hypersexual disorder had seen me walking in. And what I was wearing was completely appropriate. Completely appropriate. I was in business attire. Everything was covered up. Not a single part of my body or skin outside of, my hands, my wrists, my neck, but no bosom. I wasn't wearing anything to accentuate my hips or my backside. It was all appropriate. But the gentleman that had this diagnosis had leaned over the person that he was speaking with to look me up and down. And I understand that so many people are going to say, well, that's what people do. But this man got up and approached me. And as soon as that took place, everybody started charging. And somebody had said to him, "You've been doing so well. You've come so far." It had become so abundantly clear that people were concerned about what his next move was going to be because so many of them were inappropriate. He had a history of grabbing the private areas of the staff, of other patients. He had a history of tearing the clothes, the tops off of staff and other patients. And apparently he had gone a long time without doing any of that. I'm saying all of that to say he was also diagnosed with a number of other mental health disorders, but the hypersexual component was blatantly obvious. P. Diddy's freak parties, his attraction to severely underaged individuals, his desire, look, all of this set aside, everybody is allowed to have their kink. Everybody's allowed to have their fetish. But the minute we start delving into sexual activity without the other person's consent or permission, the minute we start delving into taking advantage of minors or sexual activity with underage individuals who are not at a point in their life where they can give permission, that doesn't count. And I know that it seems strange that I would have to point that out, but the internet is an interesting place. So all of those, the list, all of the above, all of those fall under the heading of hypersexual disorder. The inability to control sexual desires, the stepping out of social norms to try to feed your sexual desires, the stripping others of their rights and their ability to say yes and or no to provide consent for the sake of pleasuring your own sexual desire. These are all symptoms of hypersexual disorder. All of these paired together, when left untreated, turns into the clusterfuck of a situation that is Sean P. Diddy Combs. And it makes it incredibly difficult when it gets to this point to look at the situation with remorse, not for the victims, but for him. There's no remorse. I feel that as a healthcare professional, I can professionally look somebody in the face who is saying, I acknowledge that I have these conditions and I want to take care of them. I can professionally do my absolute best with my knowledge, my intellect, my training to help you through this, to respect that you have an issue and you no longer want it to disrupt your life. But to welcome these issues, to embrace them, and to utilize your status, your social status, to expand on them. Yes, of course, that makes it incredibly difficult to look at you, to look at the situation that you are in and think, oh no, you poor thing. No. So, I do want to repeat that I am not in a position to diagnose anyone, but because of where I am in my life and what I am trying to do to better myself and educate myself and, move up in my career, I did think and believe that this would be a good is an interesting word, an interesting topic to expand upon, to further or to practice the motions of going through symptoms and attaching it to a diagnosis. This has certainly been an interesting experience. And I would love to hear what everybody has to say. I would love to see everybody's comments. I would love to continue this conversation. Again, I understand that there are a number of topics in this conversation that is difficult for a number of people, and I respect that. But just share how you feel in the comment section. Like, share, subscribe. I've got another episode coming for y'all. The next one will be about the Caucasian nurse who was in the nursery breaking the bones of African-American newborn babies. So stay tuned. Thanks, guys.